Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Naked Eye. Today, I have possibly my biggest guest yet. It's the Seahawks legend, Pro Bowl player. It's Lofa Tatupu. Lofa, buddy, how are you?
Right, dog. I'm good. Thank you for that introduction. Appreciate
Yeah.
that, man.
You're welcome, man. How are you?
It's still early in your podcast, though, so I don't know. Hopefully, I can hold that title for a little longer.
Fair enough. Dude, I'm super excited for this podcast because, this year especially, my interest in football has grown rapidly. Like last year, I kind of followed it and tried to keep track of what was going on. But this year, because of the internship, which we'll talk about later, I just started to love it. Like now I'm following Seahawks, so it's just I love it. It's fun. And who better to talk to than the fucking Seahawks legend? So I'm excited, man.
Right on, brother. I mean, yeah, we appreciate having you. For those that don't know, Bry is intern Brian for us, but hopefully maybe one day it could be a full-time position because he's crushing it for us. Fucking killing the social media game and killing me every time I look up and see a meme or some shit. It's well done. He's got our followers engaged, and I mean that's what you asked for, right? And then on top of other things, he's done a ton of other things for us. But I appreciate you, brother.
Oh, well, hey, man, I appreciate you for saying that. So starting off this podcast, I kind of want to just hop into your early life just to start. So just first question here, what got you into football?
So my dad, I'm second generation NFL. So for those that may not know, my dad played 14 years in the National Football League, and that's a long time.
He was a running back for the Patriots, right?
Yeah, he was a fullback, and back when they really used fullbacks, when the league was more running than it was passing. And, but he was, primarily known for special teams. He was, I think he was first team alternate for the Pro Bowl, 5 or 6 times. He did eventually go in '85 when they went to the Super Bowl, but, yeah, he was a bad dude. And, so, growing up, in New England, that's where I grew up, Massachusetts. And, all you ever hear, everybody's like, oh, your dad, he's a great football player. But more so what I loved about the experience was, he told me he was an even better man. And I think that's really all you can ask for in a role model, right? So, as soon as I knew what a football was, I was just in love. And I told my mom when I was 7 years old, the first time I ever watched my dad at a game, it was 6 or 7 that I remember. He went down and made a big hit. Crowd's going fucking crazy. And, you're trapped in the game, man. I mean, from that moment on, it was football for me. And I just told my mom, I want to do what dad does. And I told her I'm going to play in the NFL one day. And so from the time I was 6 or 7, it was my mission to follow in his footsteps.
Oh, man, respect to you. I completely understand what you're saying. I remember watching this season, the first game of the Seahawks, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I remember the second or third week, I remember DK scored a touchdown. I jumped up fuck yeah, let's go. And I'm like, oh, wow. I had that moment of realization. I was like, whoa.
It takes on a life form, man, and it's in you. And you can't, once you experience that, you can't let that go. So that's what, that was my first. And from that day, like I said, everything I did from 7 years old till I was drafted at 22 or 23 was to play football.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, respect. I kind of had that attitude for my high school life. I just didn't really want to like football because I like soccer, and there's always that little bit of beef. What's the real football? But
what's the real football?
Yeah. So watching it, it's just you know what? I see the appeal, and I'm a Seahawks fan now. So I mean, fucking go Hawks.
Right on.
So you mentioned your father. So the question I have for you is was there because I know you played football in high school, and he was your coach actually.
Yeah.
Was there a pressure to kind of follow in his footsteps and be that great football player, or did he kind of make it clear there was no pressure?
There was, but not by him. He wanted me to play baseball. He was probably one of the best athletes, I'd ever seen, and everybody, you hear all the stories from your uncles, and then, your dad's friends, they're supposed to have his back. So you're like, come on, man, you're embellishing, he wasn't that good. But then my mom was like, no, he actually had a scholarship in football, baseball, and basketball.
Wow.
to a major Division I school. So he could have played any sport, including basketball, which threw me for a loop. And so I was like, damn, okay. And I mean, even his rushing records, they stood for 18, 19 years after he left high school. And I mean, it was crazy, like looking back on some of the stuff that he did. And this was, early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. So for a kid from Hawaii to get noticed by the rest of, the US, like the big school, like Notre Dame and all these other schools that were coming after him, even teams on the East Coast, you had to make a lot of noise to get noticed. Because I mean, and we'll get to it in a little bit, like my high school experience, but I was very lightly recruited, if you even want to call it recruited. But to answer your question, there was never pressure put on by him, but definitely by everybody else's standards, and my own especially. You could hear parents talking, and it's just, you look at the NFL right now, it's still happening, right? With some of the guys that play for the Browns, and they're chiming in on their sons' careers right now, and they're grown men. So I mean, I heard it, and it helped drive me, to be better, because when I look back, it's not that I wasn't good, but I was not noticeably better than I was never the best athlete on any team I played in. I was just always one of the hardest workers.
Wow. Dude, respect for that. I mean, if I was in that position where like my father was this famous player, I'd always have that internal pressure of like, damn, how am I even gonna, because there's always gonna be that comparison, right? No matter
You're
how
always
good
in the shadow.
Yeah.
Always. And so but for me, it drove me harder. It made me want it more, to reach those heights, and my mom, if anybody, my mom's, she's hardcore.
Yeah.
She was the one like that would be there. Is like, who your dad is? And I was like, okay, yeah, I know who my dad is. Like, don't remind me. You don't have to remind me. But she was the driving force of, like, I know a lot of people would think, oh, well, his dad played, so he was probably like making him go to the gym and everything. My mom was the one making me go to the gym. And
Wow.
at 12 years old, oh yeah. So she was the oldest of 7. Her dad was a Marine, her mom Air Force. So, they didn't play any games, right? And neither did Mama T. So that was really more of the driving force with my mom, that a lot of people don't know.
Wow, dude, fun fact. That's, I mean, hey, yeah. I mean, I hope that she built you into the athlete you are today. Because I mean, damn, you've had quite the career, and we'll go over that. But I mean, shit. Shout out to Mama T.
I mean, I was extremely blessed, with both parents, just to have 2 parents is a blessing, but to have 2 that cared, and it was awesome. It was a great experience growing up.
Fair enough. Going into your high school career, one thing I thought was really interesting and raised my eyebrow was you were a quarterback, apparently.
I was playing quarterback. I don't know if I ever really was a quarterback. I mean, I guess by definition, yeah, I threw the ball a couple of times, but I had to play quarterback on offense. We didn't have one, and so I was like, you know what, I'll do it, and it was fun. It definitely was fun. It was challenging, and the craziest part was the only Division I schools. There's only a couple, like 3 or 4, that wanted me to play Division I. They wanted me to play quarterback. And I was like, yeah, this is when I did my first business decision. I looked around the landscape of the NFL, and I didn't see any 5'11" Samoan quarterbacks.
Rare breed.
So I was like, like, am I the exception? I don't think so. But I see a shit ton of 5'11" linebackers, and they're kicking major ass. Zach Thomas, Dat Wynn, London Fletcher, Dexter Coakley, Sam Mills. I mean, the list just kept going. I was like, I can do it, because I'm going to watch these guys and watch how they got it done. And so, so that was like my first business decision was when I was 18. I was like, I'm going to go play linebacker instead of quarterback.
Okay, interesting. So up until that point, did you know what your position was, or were you kind of just like winging it and just being like, quarterback's fun?
I knew I had some natural ability to find the ball, some instincts on defense. And on offense, if I was running with the ball, I looked somewhat natural, out there, like I had played it before. But at quarterback, it wasn't the smoothest. I didn't go to any like those quarterback camps. I mean, I would drop back and I would just look into the secondary and like, okay, is it one deep in the middle, or we got, split safeties? And from there, trying to like, because I was probably, there was only like maybe two linemen that were heavier than me. you know, there's this rare instance where your quarterback's the third heaviest player on offense. So it was like, yo, look, one receiver, two, I'm not even getting to that third read. I'm taking off running. So, but it was an experience. And I think it helped speed up the learning process on defense about where a quarterback's trying to go with the ball. And I think that's where a lot of my big plays, interceptions, sacks, timing up the cadence, how getting the rhythm of how the quarterback calls. There's all these little things that I think it kind of secretly embedded in me, and in my subconscious, and it allowed me to become a better player on the defense side of the ball.
Respect. I think you honestly need to give yourself some more credit as quarterback, because apparently on the Sun Chronicle, you were named a local high school all-star in 99 and 2000.
I don't know if that was for offense though. I think it was defense.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Shout out
Fair
to
enough.
The Sun Chronicle though, huh?
Yeah. Shout out to them. Okay. So transitioning to college ball, I know you went to USC. Go Trojans. So I was
first I went to Maine.
Interesting.
Because
okay.
that's where I didn't get recruited. And so, that was the first, I don't want to say speed bump, in the path to the NFL draft. Not getting a major scholarship, and no disrespect to you Maine Black Bears. I love them. That's still family to me. But, I was like, okay, I'm going to play somewhere Division I. And, especially, because I always believed in like, manifesting and talking it into existence, what you put out. So, here's a kid that since he was 6 years old saying he's going to play, Division I football. And then he ends up going 1AA. So it was the first time I was like, damn, I didn't do what I set out to do, what I said I was going to do. And that was tough. So I went up there and I did have we had a great year, and I played halfway through the season and compiled a lot of stats. And then I decided to make the transfer, step the game up, go up a level. Cause I didn't think at the time, with the NFL still being my dream, I didn't think I was going to be one of the few guys at the time. There was only a couple guys getting drafted from 1AA, And so I thought, even if I played 4 great years there, I still wouldn't get drafted, because I wasn't going to get invited to the combine. So I said, okay, I got to go play. It's my second business decision. I got to transfer, which is, that shit's scary, man. That's, for all these kids transferring, because, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who they're going to get for their next recruiting class. But I set out to transfer, and Oregon and USC is what it came down to. And SC came in once they knew Oregon wanted me. And so I took a trip out there to see my mom. She was in San Diego. And, little did I know, my dad sent the film out there. And because, of course, it was where he went to school. He went to Southern Cal also. And they found out Oregon offered me a full scholarship. Oregon had been to the Fiesta Bowl the year before. I think they won the Pac the last 2 years. And so, Pete Carroll was the coach, and he was like, let's give this kid a scholarship, because you don't want to miss out on a kid that goes to Oregon and then probably the NFL. So that's how that transition went.
Fair enough. I was actually going to ask this question. You just mentioned it. How influential was your father in making all these like business decisions? Because obviously you're like, what, 18, 19 when this was happening? Like, this is scary shit.
Shit, man. Both of my parents thought I was fucking crazy. I'm not gonna lie. So this is the first one, decision to go play linebacker. They understood it, because I asked all the coaches that wanted me to play quarterback, hey, if I can't crack the starting lineup within the first year or two, can you move me to linebacker? And they're like, oh, we didn't even know you played defense. And I was like, okay, I'm not coming to your school, bro. So then, I get to Maine and I have a good season, and I was like, yo, I'm ready for the next step. Like, I knew I was. This just proved I was. And, my mom was like, yeah, go for it. My mom was always big, and if it's in your heart and it's on your head, you got to go. Like, don't second guess yourself, because if you do stay there and it doesn't go the way you want, you're always going to say, what if I took that trip? What if I, what would have happened if I went to Southern Cal? And my dad, he was like, well, just be grateful you're actually playing, because you weren't even playing, the first 6 games. And I was like, yeah, I get it. And I'm not ungrateful, but I don't, at the time I was still splitting time. So I was like, look, if I'm going to split time, or if I'm just going to play special teams, it was one of those situations where I was like, if my dream is going to die, it's going to die going for it. Like, I'm not going
Respect
to,
that.
you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to die wondering. I went for it. If it worked out, that's what I thought I was going to do. But if it didn't, hey, shit happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Such is life. So, my mom was supportive of that one, and my dad was kind of like, just pump the brakes. But it worked out, And then we'll get to another situation in a little bit where I was getting second guessed again.
Fair enough. I respect that. I mean, sometimes like, and I blame my anxiety. I want to have that attitude where it's like, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. But like, I have to sometimes be able to be like, all right, I have to manifest some sort of plan before doing anything, because then I'll just like completely melt. So, I mean, respect to you to just going for it.
Well, on top of it, it's not always like I always had a great backup plan. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of time it wasn't, but was I able to pivot? Was I able to, okay, if this wasn't meant to be, then find out what is. Like, it's not always, like I said, it was like everybody looks back on my career and they're like, oh, Pro Bowler, second rounder, but they don't remember me not getting, a fucking scholarship to a major school. They don't remember me transferring. They don't remember me being fourth on the depth chart when I got to USC. And, that's the shit that they need to know. That's what, like any kid that talks to me about football, I bring up, hey, like it's not going to go how you always think it is. But how well can you adjust and, run on the fly, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, fair enough. A question I kind of wanted to ask you, because you did bring it up, but um, would it be fair to say that, like, since you could remember, the dream was to go to the NFL at the highest level, or was it kind of like you found yourself in a situation, it's like, oh shit, I could do it?
It was no, I'm dead set and belief like that. I got this, just watch. I mean, and we'll get to it, when it did eventually happen, but there was no, of course, there was times where I questioned, was it meant to be? Like, sitting in my dorm room in Maine, not playing the first 6 games, I had to like look myself in the mirror. I was like, yo, who the fuck do you think you are, man? You can't even crack the starting lineup on 1AA. You think you were robbed of a Division I scholarship, So there's some times you got to check yourself, check your ego. And I don't think I went into it with a big head, but it's, I definitely felt like I had let not just myself down, but a lot of other people down along the way by not, getting a scholarship. That was, so these hurdles, all these speed bumps and hurdles, they happen, but how well can you navigate them? Like I said, and pivot and just keep going, man.
I mean, hey, fair enough. I mean, dude, I respect the belief you set out for yourself. I feel like there is situations where athletes would just be like, yeah, I did this, and then somehow, I mean, I just got really, really good at it. It just kind of happened.
Well, luck does play, a role in it too. I not going to say, I guess I was part of a great run at SC, but I was extremely lucky to land at SC at that time. Like, I'm not naive to think that, oh yeah, SC wasn't winning until they got this 5'11" Samoan from Massachusetts. So it's, obviously making the most of my opportunities is really what's come down to. But right place, right time, timing plays a role in everything, there could be a lot of moves that were right for you. It just wasn't the right timing. And, I guess with that, like even me leaving college early, I just felt it was the right time. I didn't think there was anything left for me to do. We won 2 straight national titles, 26 games. We went 25-1. I didn't think my stock could go any higher. So that's where another business decision came in. I was like, you know what? I'm going to the league. And that's where my parents, they were both, that was when my mom was even like, oh shit, like, wait a minute.
Wow.
So, my dad was like, finish school. And, my mom was like, you know what? You should probably listen to dad on this one. because NFL, not for long. And I was like, well, shit, I can get hurt here next year and not ever play in the NFL. But right now I can go. And at least I know. Like, remember what I said? I'm not going to die wondering. At least I know that. And I told them, who knows where I'm going to get drafted? Everybody, the scouts, even some of my own coaches, they were like, "You're making a mistake." And I was like, "Yo, if I don't get drafted, I at least know the landscape. I know how many linebackers, are getting re-signed for. I did my due diligence. I did my homework." And I think that's where like a lot of people didn't understand that, I did have a plan in that regard was, okay, well, I know this guy's up for contract. That guy is, there's this many free agents at the linebacker room and teams are always looking to get younger. I go, so God forbid I don't get drafted, which I don't believe is going to happen. I can sign. It's better to be an undrafted free agent than get drafted in the 6th or 7th round, because in the 6th or 7th round, they really don't have a big commitment to you financially. And so they're quick to move on. Like if you don't show them right away, like that you can hang, they're like, all right, practice squad or we'll cut them and we'll go get somebody else.
Wow. I mean, damn, I honestly did not know that you put so much thought into this. I guess it kind of just shows like how new I am to the sport, that you have to take all these things into consideration.
Well, I don't think a lot of kids do. I think this is just something that, that's how important it was to me that, I was going to exhaust every opportunity. I was like, okay, this is how we do it. And, like you said, we said earlier, you're like, oh, good for you for being willing to take the chance. Okay. So I took the chance. And if I didn't get drafted, then this is my backup plan. And this is how we, proceed, because we're not quitting, fuck, we're not quitting. That's one thing that's just not in my vocabulary. Fuck that.
I respect that 100%. You did mention something earlier, and I kind of wanted to touch on it, about how there were elements of luck, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion on something. Obviously, like luck is a factor, and obviously luck is by definition it's like it just kind of happens. But I kind of believe that like if you work hard enough, there will be that lucky opportunity. Do you think the same way?
Yeah, that's the one of like all the successful people, or there's a lot of people who use that quote. The harder I work, the luckier I got, and it's truth, because more and more opportunities start to present themselves. But especially in our line of work, in football, there are very few opportunities, and you fucking better make the most of it. Otherwise, there's another guy right there ready to take the spot. And dude, I mean, it's crazy. I've seen a guy miss a tackle and be gone the next day. And, it wasn't like the tackle fucking lost the game. It wasn't like the tackle, he was, in my opinion, it's one of those things. He made a hell of an effort to get there and even slow the guy down. And so in my opinion, it was a great play, even though he didn't make the tackle. But next thing I come in and the guy's not there, and I'm like, shit, dude, are you serious? Like, it happens like that? Yeah. So I mean, it's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah, I had no idea.
They don't even need an explanation.
That's terrifying. Holy fuck.
Yeah, bro. Like, I mean, it's cutthroat.
Shit. Did you ever like miss a tackle and you're like, oh, and then you're just like shitting your pants the whole day? Like,
no, you know what? Like, I think that was like the one area where I probably was, I don't know if you want to call it naive or ignorant, was like, I didn't give a fuck. Like, I never let it affect me. I was, you got to go on the next play. Just like if you make a big play, an interception, a sack, fumble, you can't sit there like, oh, okay, my work's done, I'm good for the day. No, you get your ass back out there and make another play. But, it was when I was real young, I remember, I had a bad play. And, when you're young, so impressionable, you're just like, oh shit, are we going to lose the game because of me? Like, and, one of my coaches, I'm over there crying in the corner because I was like, fuck, man, I just ruined the game. And coach was like, yo, just go get the ball back. Like, they got the ball because I think I fumbled or something. And he was like, just go get the ball back. And so went back out there, and the very next play, I made a tackle, just ripped the ball away from the running back, and fucking we won. And like, I think from that moment on, it kind of like turned a gear in my head that like, hey, you don't want to mess up, but if you do, just get your ass back up and get back out there. And so I think that's something. There's a lot of guys that mentally can't get over that hurdle. It's like, oh shit, like you're saying, where you're walking around with you shitting your pants the rest of the game, like don't miss another tackle. You don't, you can't play like that. You can't. I don't think you can do anything like that really, because then you're just always second guessing yourself, and it starts to linger to the next play and the next one, and it's so for me, I think an overwhelming, I mean, sense of confidence, something I was never lacking.
Fair enough.
And so, I mean, probably to the point where some people would, misinterpret as arrogant, but whatever. That's their problem.
I mean, hey, I like respect. I mean, I think that, like you said, I think that's just a good thing to go for. Not even in football, but just in life in general. Like you just gotta learn to dust yourself off and pick yourself up again and keep going.
Man, it's the biggest message I tell to all these kids. I talk to a lot of high school, but even younger kids. And if they can grasp that aspect mentally, oh, the fucking world is yours, man. I'm telling you, because then you're not, it's just, it starts to sharpen you mentally. And then, internally, it puts a drive and an attitude that you can't be stopped.
Wow. Shit, that was pretty deep. I kind of want to bring it back to football for a sec. So I did some research and I was interested in this. So you met Pete Carroll at USC, correct?
Yes. Yep.
He was was he in charge of a player developmental program or something like that?
No, I don't know what that means. Did they say what that means?
I just looked it up. He said he managed a player developmental program. So I mean that sounds pretty legit. So I'm like, I'll believe you.
Oh, the education, not just SC, fight on, but the football education was a fucking master's degree, bro. Like that.
Wow.
So if that's what they're talking about, I'm not aware of any player developmental program that he ran. I didn't go to meetings or anything that hey, this is how players develop. But I'm talking, from, the rules he put in place, he's got 3 rules, 3 golden rules. He still talks about them in his book that, everybody asked, did I read? No, I didn't read it. I fucking lived it. I was there with him. So
fair enough.
Number 1 is protect the team. Number 2 is be early. It's not be on time. That's another message I like to tell these kids, because if it's important to you, you're going to be early. If it means that much. And then the last one is no whining, no bitching, no complaining. And that's just an attitude. That's something you can control. And there's very few things you can control on the football field, but your fucking effort and attitude are 2 things that you can control. And so when you talk about if there was a player developmental program, I mean, we got doctorates in that department, because from the film breakdown to the defenses to why we're running a certain defense it was incredible. And so that's why my transition to the NFL was pretty seamless, because I mean, I just played for a small NFL organization at SC, where all of our coaches, one was even Ken Norton Jr., former, linebacker in the NFL, Super Bowl champion 4 times, 3 as a player, 1 as a coach. Rocky Seto was a computer. He would just hand us these sheets of tendencies. And when the game becomes mathematical, it becomes chess versus checkers. It's so easy. And then Nick Holt he's my first linebacker coach. And I mean, he had me break down the offense before we even got to the defense. So now I understood why offenses were doing certain things, why their blocking schemes were effective versus certain defense. It was a masterclass, like I said, in football, and then also how to be a pro. Because I think that's something that no matter how much talent you have, a lot of kids, they struggle with, being in the new surrounding, new environment, and then still performing at their best capabilities.
I mean, yeah, that I remember reading that up. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. You already knew, he knew Pete Carroll. So, I mean, like you said,
So Pete was the coach. I had met him once or twice when he was the coach for New England when I was growing up in New England, and then he went out to SC, and a year or 2 later, was when I went out there.
Mm. Yeah. So I mean, I'm guessing when you're in that position, you must have been confident like that you're going to get drafted into the NFL.
Well, I mean, you start to see all your buddies get drafted. And I think that's the coolest thing is like, man, I remember we were fucking broke, just sitting on our couch, having a beer and just like, yo, when we get to the league. And, that was the talk. And I don't know if a lot of kids do that anymore. I mean, they shouldn't, not the beer part, but I mean, actually talking to each other about their dreams and their goals. And this is how we're going to do it. And, so it didn't matter what team drafted you, like that's like, I just want a chance. And I mean, man, me, all my roommates. So all 4 of my roommates got drafted from my junior year. Yeah. So I mean, it was wild, dude. It was like, it was the norm for us, right? Where most other colleges, they're hoping like 1 or 2 guys get drafted. We were having like 4 or 5 guys every draft.
Wow. Damn. Yeah. I think a part of this generation is like, I don't want to be, I feel like I sound like a boomer saying this, but I feel like this generation has gotten a little softer. And I feel like there is a little bit of a distance now because like it's one thing to be like, oh man, someday I'm going to do this compared to like, no, I'm going to fucking do this X, Y, and Z just so I can do this. Like there's someday isn't the day of the week. That's a saying.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I like that one. But I mean, no, it's true. And I mean, we were softer than the generations before us because I mean, that's how it goes with the time. But I mean, you have to realize, and there's a lot of things that we didn't have to deal with that these kids are growing up. I mean, fucking COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't have to grow up with a mask on my face going to school. My kids do.
Yeah.
And it's like, how's that changing things? And social media. So there's, every generation. I mean, even just watch, it's going to happen years from now. Gen Z is going to call the next generation like, oh man, they're so soft. It's just what happens, I'm not here to pick on anybody, but I mean, it's just what I remember. The older generation is just like, oh my God, these idiots. And I mean, talking about me and my friends. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
Fair enough. So moving forward here. So the draft. So you got drafted in the 2nd round, if I'm correct here. What was that experience like for you and your family and your friends? Like, what was that like?
I mean, I think I was the only one that believed it was going to.
Someone's like, oh shit, he did it.
Yeah, I think that was the main reaction from like, a lot of my friends. Like they were just like, oh shit, this fucking dude's been talking about since we were 7 and he really did it. And, so it was, I mean, it's something I dreamed of since I was 7. I used to watch the draft and write down draft picks in my notebooks, just like, oh, that's a good pick, and like just go back and revisit them every year and see how the player did a couple of years later. Because I mean, like I said, I watched football from sun up to sundown every day since I was 7. And so we had a draft party and there's probably like 50, 60 friends, relatives. It was down in Oceanside, San Diego, right on the beach. One of my dad's former college teammates was gracious enough to let us use the house, and we had a fucking party. It was it was how I always envisioned it. Is that I didn't want to be in New York on the stage. Would you want to be a 1st rounder? Yeah, but that shit looks like torture, man. Just sitting there in the green room if you don't get picked. So we threw a party on the beach. It was, right up my alley. I was like, this is how I want it. And the craziest thing was though, I didn't fucking check the beach for cell reception. So when my name got called, it came across the ticker on the bottom and it was just doo-doo-doo. There's a trade. Seattle takes Lofa Tatupu, and like the whole fucking place just erupt. Food, drinks flying everywhere. And I was like, I haven't even heard from my agent because usually get the call 15 minutes earlier. So I'm looking, I have no service. And now you want to talk about shit in your pants? I was like, oh fuck. Like, Mike Holmgren, the head coach, the organization, they're probably like, yo, what the hell's wrong with this kid? So I get to like my mom checks her phone and she has a message from my agent. So he's like, hey, I don't know if you saw it, but Loaf got drafted. I'm like, yeah, we saw it. And so then I get on the phone with Holmgren, and he's like, they told me you were a smart player. You didn't even check for cell reception before you.
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, it was a good one by Holmgren, but yeah, that was my first impression, right, with the organization.
Wow,
And,
that's a story.
but I think the coolest part was, everybody, like all the draft, the mock drafts, everything that comes out, all the experts, they're like fifth, sixth round is what they're saying about me. And like I said, I did my homework the year before, and I looked at where a lot of the guys that, played in the Pac-10, it was Pac-10 at the time, where they got drafted. And I was like, you know what? I'm going third round. That's the latest I'll go. And I told everybody there, I go third round. So I was like, so get comfortable, because back then it was first, second, third round. So I was like, yeah, we got a long wait. But it's going to happen today. I promise you. And then, sure enough, it wasn't as long as I anticipated. It went 45th overall. So I think it was the 12th or 13th pick of the second round. And it was one of the greatest days of my life, to have my family and friends, just see my dream come true, but also what I told them I was going to do. Me keeping my word to them was probably more special to me than actually having my dream come true.
Damn. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy for you, man. That was quite the story. And like, dude, I mean, you made it. So I'll respect.
It was a fun day.
Could you talk to me about like when you actually made your debut? Like how soon? Like how long was that timeline between getting drafted and making your debut?
Okay, so draft happens in April. You go up for mini camp, and then you break in June. You come back in July, August for camp. And so then a month after that, you get your first game. So it was about 5 months. I just left the national championship against Oklahoma, and went straight into training and went to the combine, went to pro day, all these, things, these hoops they made you jump through, and then you get drafted. And then, like 5-6 months later, and I was named the opening day starter as a rookie, which is, I mean, when they take you first round, it's expected, but I don't think anybody expected it from a second rounder.
Was it like, do you even remember your debut? Because I've interviewed athletes in the past, and they're like, yeah, it was a blur. It was a complete blur. I don't even remember it.
I remember it all.
Yeah,
it was an absolute ass kicking by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Nice.
It's it was, I think we lost like 26-12. Like we fumbled the opening kickoff. Oof. It was hot as shit. That's really what I remember. Was so fucking hot, dude. I'm talking like, now I played in Auburn, Alabama, my sophomore year, and it was, it was hot, but this one, man, it felt like straight up you're just in a sauna. And wow. Yeah, and we were on the field a lot that day. But what I took away from it, here's an interesting story. So first, we lost, right? And I got back to my locker and I had myself a good little cry. And
as one should. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And like, there are guys coming over like, hey man, it's a long season, don't worry, Rook. And they didn't realize it was the first time I lost a game in almost 2 years.
Whoa.
And so I think, and then like, so I wasn't used to that feeling. I had won, me and my boys had won like 20 straight games since losing to Cal, that I was like, yo, what the fuck just happened? Like, and so it set in, and I cried in my locker. And but that's, when it dawned on me, I was like, hey man, like other than like the 72 Dolphins, the only team to go undefeated, it's not going to happen. Like it's been happening, but we made a hell of a run that year with a championship run, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But that's when it set in on me, like, holy shit, like I haven't felt this feeling in almost 2 years.
Whoa. Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about like you getting drafted at being the best day of your life to this fucking absolute like train crash.
That's what it felt like to lose your first game after all those consecutive wins. I mean, it was, I remember, just like you said, all those guys or other people you talk to, they don't remember, it's a blur. I remember it vividly. I remember fucking plays from that game. I remember,
wow.
It was, that's one that I'll never forget.
I mean, hey, we talked about it earlier. I guess this is a perfect time to apply that mindset of you just got to dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and just, just back to the drawing board.
Yeah. And I mean, as soon as, because I know a lot of the guys were feeling like, bad about the loss, but like what I took away from it, because as soon as we get back to the bus, I look at all the stats. Okay. Like, where did they beat us? Was it third down? Was it red zone? I started dissecting it because that's how I was programmed when I was at SC. Is like, find where we were deficient or whatever. And we turned the ball over 5 times. Anybody that turns the ball, if you look back at the history of the game, I don't think anybody ever stayed within 12 points or 14 points like we did when you turn the ball over 5 times and you don't get the ball at least once. So, I looked at like the Patriots and Titans. I think the Patriots had 4 takeaways and they won 36-16 against the Titans. So, it should have been a blowout. And so that's when, when I got to compartmentalize everything and get back to the jet when we were about to take off back, I was like, hey, we should have got blown out. So like, we must have something here in terms of like a good team. If with all that shit that went wrong, we still were in that game. We were in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I've really only like understood and appreciated like this year is how much like tactics and strategy has to go into football. It's like chess almost. It's so strategic. I remember like I just kind of had the stigma of like, oh, it's just big dudes hitting the shit out of each other.
Yeah,
like,
just whoever can hit harder and run faster. Yeah,
but it's like there's just so much. Like even now, like you like just dissecting everything. It's just like me being new to football. It's like holy fuck. Like it's like goddamn. I really respect it.
Oh, it is when you get to that level, it's fun. Like just matching wits with the best, not only players, but the best minds in football, the offense coordinators, the head coaches, it's very tactical.
Yeah. So moving along in your NFL career, I like looking at it, like you picked up quite the reputation. Like you're nominated for a few Pro Bowls. You made the first team in 2007, if that's correct. You're quite the player. So my question was, how did it feel to be in that position? Like you were the man, dude. Like is that something you thrived in, or was it too much to handle at times?
No, I never viewed it as I was the man. I'd always known that, when you talk about lucky, my defensive line was a bunch of savages. I'm talking like they kicked major ass, and, because of that, I don't think I was always, at least especially not right away, not as a rookie. I wasn't a focal point of the opposing offense to try to like slow down or take away from the game. Now, as when we get to the next year and years after, it was like, hey, you got to get someone up to Tatupu. Like you have to put someone at least, on him, or he'll make a lot of tackles. And so, but I've, always tried to let everybody know that my early success was largely due to a lot of guys that didn't get the credit they deserve. Grant Wistrom, Bryce Fisher, Craig Terrell, Chuck Darby, Marcus Tubbs, Rocky Bernard, probably the best D tackle I ever played with, Brandon Mebane, all these guys. And Rock should have went to a Pro Bowl. I think he led all D tackles with 9 sacks one year, and he didn't go. Yeah, that's a shit ton of sacks. And you couldn't run the ball on us. That's really, so when you have to throw it, that's where all the interceptions came to play. It's because, okay, well, you can't run, so I'm not going to respect it. It's like we took away one whole phase of an offense, and now you can put more time into studying routes and concepts, so you're ready to make the play when it presents itself, because they're going to come back to some of those plays. There's going to be like 5 routes that they run every game, and just depending on the coverage you're running, are you in the position to make the play where the primary target is. And, you know, if I saw it, I would, you know, ask one of the linebackers, hey, you know, you better catch this. Otherwise I'm coming over there and I'm going to steal it.
Yeah, fair enough. It's good. It's good that you have that mentality of like, I could tell that you're very humble and like, obviously you got to credit the team as well. It's a team sport. And another thing I've really learned and respected about football is every single position is vital.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. It was, I mean, yeah, 2005, that rookie year. I mean, that was one of, I think we reeled off 10 or 11 straight wins, which is like almost unheard of. I don't, you know, I think the only other ones would be the 72 Dolphins. And then who was it? The Patriots when they won 18-1, they went 18 straight
So
wins.
close.
Close, man. And I mean, that's gotta be heart wrenching, but, it's, yeah, no one, I don't care how good you are. Like maybe a receiver, like, you know, like Randy Moss, who they're double covering. Yeah. He's probably doing it by himself, but for the rest of us, man, you need the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's especially when you're in the middle. I mean, you know, there's you got to have a lot of help. And I mean, from the linebackers that Leroy Hill, Julian Peterson, D. Lewis, Nico Kudavides, Isaiah Kazavinsky, Kevin Bentley, all of the dogs, man. Like, and the secondary was no joke. It was the most fun, you know, especially coming off of 2 straight national title runs and rolling right into a Super Bowl run. That was like, I expected it, but it was like kind of like, wow, like, you know, we're doing it.
It sounds like you cherished your rookie year quite a bit. So it kind of goes into my next question. Like, this might be a hard one to answer, obviously, but what do you think in your time spent at Seattle? What was your favorite season?
It's tough. They were all special, even the ones where we weren't good. There's 2008. It was Holmgren's last year, and like, I mean, we had like 20 guys on IR, and it was like a fucking club or an NFL record. And but we were still in every game, kind of like the Seahawks are right now. We were in every game down to the last minute.
Oh, it's so frustrating. We'll talk about that later, but
no, for sure. I mean, but that's how I kind of sympathize with these guys. Is I know what it's like, man. And you're fighting, you're clawing, scratching, and it's just like the ball doesn't bounce your way, or you know,
like the scoreboard doesn't do your team justice.
Yeah, exactly. And then 09, I missed almost all the season, which we'll talk about the injuries in a second. But the other 4 seasons, we won the division and we went to the playoffs. So 4 out of 6 years, we won the division and went to the playoffs. It's pretty damn good. And they were all special for their own reasons. I mean, you know, I'll say my 2 favorites were probably my first and my last. Yeah. So my first, I mean, the run, Super Bowl, even though it didn't end the way we wanted to. And then the last was like, no one gave us a chance. We just got a new head coach in Pete. And I mean, the roster got shuffled like fucking 200 times, dude. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Like there was like a record transaction. So it's like, I mean, how are you supposed to build chemistry with a guy that's there for like 3 days? It was a revolving door in every corner of the locker room. I was like, dude, who the fuck's lining up next to me now? Like, wait, what? And like, you know, I don't think a lot of people understand that. It's like, because of course we had injuries and stuff, but like, it was fucking wild. But we made history, even though it's not something to brag about. Going 7-9 and making the playoffs, winning the division with a losing record.
Wow.
But I think we redeemed ourselves quite nicely when we beat the Super Bowl champs at home, you know, with the Beastquake. And, you know, that was my last game in, it was Questfield at the time, or I think it was a CenturyLink. I don't know. It was one of them. But, you know, that was my last game. And I think the coolest thing about that, it was also Hasselbeck's last game. And Hasselbeck threw for like 400 yards. I mean, he had like a storybook day. It shit was, you know, magical. And they even had him like carrying off his kid on, you know, kind of like his farewell. And I mean, my farewell was getting carried off the field.
Oh man.
But you know what? It's I think that kind of it you know, it sums up my time here in Seattle was that I fucking gave everything I had. I had nothing left when I fucking left. To the point that, like a gladiator, I got carried off on my shield, man. I don't remember the fucking game. I don't, I
That
don't,
one was a blur. That one will
yeah,
just,
I don't care to
yeah.
remember it. I just remember we won, and that was my last home game. So I mean, I thought that was quite poetic the way we both left that field, and fitting. I think it was fitting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, we're speaking about injuries, and I kind of want to go into this conversation now. Um, so I know there are some major injuries you had in your career, but one thing I wanted to talk about first was like minor injuries. So my first question is like, how frequent I guess you can only speak for yourself, but how frequent do you think players carry to like minor injuries? Was it like is it a
Oh,
constant thing?
as soon as you have your first padded practice, and even sometimes before that, yeah, like dislocated fingers. I mean, take that shit up. Like you're not hurt. Like get your ass back out there. Like you better not even miss like a series. You better fucking go get that shit popped back in, get back out there, and
Oh,
you'll see the guy come back with his fingers taped together. But no one's ever going to talk about it. It's like, yeah, he just fucking dislocated his finger. I mean, that shit hurts. But yeah, ankle sprains, turf toe. Like, luckily, I never got that. But there's all these little things that are nagging, and they lead to bigger problems. Because if it changes the way, especially like in your gait or the way you run, now you're going to get an imbalance, and that's going to lead to, a much bigger problem. Like a ankle sprain could lead to a calf or a quad rupturing.
wow.
And yeah, and I mean, it's just because you're not used to running improperly. I mean, you're an athlete, so you're gonna make up as best you can. But I mean, shit happens all the time. You're never 100% once you put those pads on.
Damn, that quote just kind of hit me in a different way. Holy shit. I mean, that's one of the reasons why like I kind of strayed away from football. Is just because like all the injuries, like it just kind of makes me cringe whenever I see like a really, really bad injury. Cause it's like you feel for the guy. Even though there's some teams I just don't really like, it's like I don't want these guys to fucking get hurt or even die.
Yeah.
Like this shit's serious. Like I hear about all the time, like the concussions. Like
Mm-hmm.
you must have dealt with your fair amount of concussions.
Oh, I that's the shit that like people don't see. Like, they could see your ankle double taped, your fucking fingers buddy taped because you broke one of them. But like, what goes on after a concussion, that is the ugliest part. And so yeah, I probably since college, I probably averaged 3 or 4 a year.
Holy fuck.
I mean, they weren't to the point that I was completely out. I was always able to, luckily, like at least sit up or get off the turf. Um, the last couple, not on my own power. Like I was like trying to stumble up and like it just kept falling down. And a teammate will grab you or something, until the medics come out and like get you. But yeah, luckily, I say that luckily because I've seen guys just out cold, like eyes rolled back, foaming at the mouth. Like
Holy shit.
I'm like, yeah, is he gonna be okay? And it's but that's the stuff that goes on after that because it's a brain injury.
Mm-hmm.
Brain runs a lot of fucking shit that we do on a daily basis. And just from a mood standpoint, from sensitivity to light, loud noises. I mean, and you're expected to go back out there and play the next week. Like, yeah, the noise is fucking with your head with how loud it is in there.
Yeah.
And then the light too. Like, you already can't, your vision's blurred because of, whatever, neurons and shit got scrambled back there that, connect to the eye socket. But it's yeah, it's a lot. And like that's the thing that they don't see. And then years later, when a guy does have problems, it's just kind of like, oh, well, he did have a ton of concussions. And, it didn't boil over until, years later. Right. But I mean, it's that's the concussions were way worse than any fucking surgery. And even the surgeries, those, the ones that were 6 months to come back from a half a year, that's a pretty significant amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've had a couple 4 to 6 month surgeries, but there was nothing compared to a concussion. Cause I know a lot of people make like, oh, well, he had surgery and like the hurdle mentally to get over that. Yeah, it's definitely, you wonder if you can get back to 100%. I mean, all that shit's there, but compared to a concussion, like you can't even fucking think clearly sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can't tell me that any surgery was really that much worse. If you were able to come back and play, is what I'm saying. There have been career-ending surgeries that I'm sure were very traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of if you were able to come back within 6 months, 8 months, like, a significant knee injury or, anything, you can't tell me that was worse than any concussion, because like the concussion can fucking change you.
Mm-hmm. That's the injury that scares me the most is concussions, because like you said, like it runs a lot of shit, and I can't really speak on football because like I've only followed it for like a small amount of time. But like boxers, like Joe Frazier, like looking at that man in his old age, it's like holy shit.
Do you know who's got the most concussions in sports?
Probably
Soccer.
football players. Soccer, really?
Because of all the heading.
All the heading.
And when the ball gets cold, and I mean, you think about most soccer players, they're a smaller frame. I mean, they don't have a 20+ inch neck like I do, right? Like, so they're not ready for like that whiplash or the repeated hits. But that's what they say. It's repeated hits to the head. But they said, the soccer is the leading sport with concussion, and it could be because soccer is played everywhere too. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you get everyone playing soccer, they're gonna get concussions. I don't know how many are actually reported by hitting the ball or like getting hit, Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that's interesting. Fact is, I think the sport with the most concussions per year is soccer.
Wow, I did not know that. I mean, it makes sense because I saw like an article that in Europe, I think players who are like under 12 can no longer like head the ball anymore in soccer.
They can't do headers, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I thought that was so bizarre, but I mean, you telling me that I mean, thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense because like sometimes I'm watching soccer and I see someone take a nasty header, like a bullet straight to the head. It's like, Jesus, man, that shit's got a kill.
Yeah, and then even when they get slide tackled, their head whipping back and hitting the ground. I mean, so it's
A question I kind of wanted to ask you is I'm curious, and obviously you can't give me an exact answer because it's just your opinion, you're guessing. But like just ballpark, how like if you were to like put a percentage on it, how many people do you think playing football right now are like carrying a concussion and still playing?
Oh shit! I mean, there's a couple on every team that definitely the protocol's gotten a lot better, but you're gonna get. So like I said, I got like 3 or 4 a year. So that's one every 4 weeks. That's one every month, right?
Jesus.
So, and I never missed any times for a concussion. I never missed any practice or games for a concussion. I only missed games for muscle tears. So groin, hamstring, pec. Those were the injuries that kept me out of games. But no, there's some that they're afraid to tell the team because they don't want to get cut. It's like, or they don't want to get benched. You get benched, someone else comes in, plays well, it's like next man up. So yeah, there's a couple every game that get their bell rung or get a concussion and they go right back out there.
It's so fucked to me that like such a serious injury, because like your brain like is injured. It's something that's almost brushed off. It's like you got a concussion, like tough out, buddy. Fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that gladiator mentality too from the player in the competitor aspect, but they've made a much bigger emphasis, and even now they got guys they call it spotters. So there's guys up in the medical or up in the upper deck that look down, and if a guy gets up slow or he's wobbling, they blow the whistle and they send someone out there to get him. So
well, that's good. Moving on to your major injuries. I'm recalling one from 2009 against the Cardinals. You had a major, I think it was a pec rupture, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Yep.
What was that your first ever like serious injury?
No, because I mean, I'd already had, it was 2009. So I already had probably like 6 or 7 surgeries. And anytime you go into the knife, I had 10 surgeries from college to the NFL.
Whoa.
Yeah. And anytime you go into the knife, that the mind-body connection has to get repaired and reintroduced. So, I would say it was the most, time-consuming one in terms of recovery. 4 to 6 months is what they give you. But Yeah, it wasn't my first major. Again, the concussions were definitely the major injuries.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that was the one where I missed the most time. I missed 11 games. When I left, we were 2-3, and we finished, I think, 4-12 or 5 and
Oof.
11. Yeah. So
Yikes.
like, and like, more than being hurt, like fucking letting the team down like that was way worse. Like
Hmm.
I felt like, okay, if we won 5 games, I felt like maybe like that 7-9 season, if I could have been there, we could have went 8-8, 9-7, maybe made the playoffs. I would have helped, lead us to a couple more wins. But and I think that was the hardest part of that injury, more so than missing the time. I knew I'd play again. I wasn't. Again, that's the unreal confidence aspect. It was like, it's nothing. I got another one. I'll be fine.
Jesus Christ. I mean, respect. Like what was that like going through that injury? Because you said it was like the longest time you spent out. Like there must have been a lot of components that you kind of deal with, like the mental aspect, the physical
Yeah.
aspect.
Well,
What
it's
was it
just
like?
it's lonely. It's um, but there's nothing you can do about it. And so like but you're it's almost like you're not part of the team. That's the part that's like the toughest to get over. It's not like, fucking like I've been hurt before, I'll get over this shit. But like fucking kind of just being like a loner out there, like you're going to rehab like at 6 o'clock. Everybody else is going to meetings. Like, I mean, you might see them at breakfast if you get your rehab done in time, but it's like, fuck. Um, but I always made time at the end of the day. Like, even if I went home, because I would be done by like noon or 1, I would come back and just watch meetings with the younger guys and try to help out any way I could. But yeah, the mental aspect and emotional, is tough on you. And it's I don't know if you, even with all the other surgeries I've been through before, I don't know if you ever really get used to it.
Hmm.
You fight as best you can until you're healthy enough and happy to get back out there.
Damn. Would you say that injury was career changing?
No, no, I would say all the concussions were. I'm always going to keep coming back to that because that my gift was, the mental aspect of the game. And when my processor started slowing down because of all the hits,
Hmm.
I started to become less and less special. I started to become real normal out there.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
That must have been like kind of tough to really look yourself in the mirror and be like, wow, you got,
Yeah. I mean, it's, especially like when you're not, plays that you made, look easy because they were easy. When those are becoming like harder and harder, it's, you recognize that you're like, oh shit, like that took everything in me to get there, to get through that block and then make that play. Um, but it's something that like, oh man, like a year, even 6 months ago, I was able to get by that much quicker because I could, I recognized all that. And like, even like visually, vision started becoming impaired from the hits. I remember one hit I took, I've ended up with fluid in my macula, which means you can't really see out of one eye. Like
oh,
that was '07. Yeah. Like my best year, but like, you're having success. So you're not going to fucking tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody. I was like,
Jesus.
yeah. So,
But you fully couldn't see, or was it just like impaired?
huge black dot out of my right eye.
Damn.
Yeah. So I don't know how I caught any of those fucking balls that year.
On a women of prayer.
Fucking closing one eye.
Oh.
But I mean, it was, yeah, dude, there's things that like, again, like that probably should have came up when you were like, is there things that people play with that, don't, get talked about or checked all the time, man, all the time. And so, yeah, it's wild, dude. It's a wild ride.
Damn. It's interesting because like I kind of wanted to compare that injury in '09 to because one thing I didn't know actually was apparently there was a deal going in 2012 for the Falcons,
Hmm.
and you had an injury.
Or the other
Um,
one.
yeah, the other one, the other like serious injury.
Yeah.
Um, could you walk me like what was it like to compare that serious injury in '09 compared to 2012? Because I mean, obviously with
Oh,
Seahawks,
12.
it's a, go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, yeah. 12 is way gnarlier. I mean, the actual injury. So when I ripped it, your your pec attaches to two spots, on the arm, the humerus and then the clavicle up top. So the first one, I went to throw a guy by and it ripped off my arm and I felt that. And I was like, I just felt it was a strong pop. And like, even the lineman was just like, like, what was that? And I was just like, fuck. And so I was just curling my arm because that's the natural. When you see someone curling their arm, they're like, okay, like what? Like what just happened? And then I stayed in for a couple more plays. And
I'm like holding my titties right now.
Because we were we were close to the 2-minute warning. I was like, all right, just tough it out for 2 minutes and I'll figure out what happened when we get in the, into the locker room. So I go to run and I was like, ooh, that kind of hurts. Like I shouldn't be feeling a pain, like my arm was just like hanging there. But then I go to make a tackle on the receiver. And as I tackle him, he ducks and I look up and I got him with my good arm and my other arm's just hanging. My safety comes over the top, misses him and just hits my shoulder. And I felt it rip down the middle of the pec. It tore right down the middle. And I was just like, okay, that one hurt. And so, I gave the international sign for get me out of here. I gave it the helmet tap and, I went off the field, went to the locker room and they're like, yeah, pec's done. It's torn, full rupture. And I was like, all right, awesome. So, that injury, I didn't think anything of it. Right. But then when you get to 12, which, that's like my seventh year in the NFL. And I had just missed the previous season because I got released during camp and it was weird because it was like the lockout year. And so a lot of veterans were getting cut just in favor of the league going younger. It happens. I mean, with every CBA, it just kind of happens. But, so I didn't kind of like a quarterback, like if you were starting somewhere like Cam Newton, you don't just get picked up right away because most teams already have their guy and they don't want to disrupt chemistry. The same things with a middle linebacker. There's not a lot that get cut and they just get picked up right away. And all the offers I had were to play outside linebacker for that next year. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to train and see if anybody needs me for playoffs. Didn't happen. So went and visited the Falcons and I got in their camp and loved it. Loved the team, loved the time down there. And I strained my pec because it was so hot out there. I mean, even in like February, March, whenever we had our first mini camp, March or April, fucking like 85 degrees. I was like, ah. And
you can't escape the heat in the US. Jesus.
No, man, strained the pec. And then, so I didn't do any benching for a while because I knew it was bad. But then I ended up getting back home and training and it tore, it ruptured when I was lifting. And that injury, was way different because it was setting in. It was like, okay, you might be done, Loaf.
Damn.
And so, when you have that conversation with yourself, when you start thinking you might be done, it's not a good conversation to have. But it was, considering all the injuries, 10 concussions, 15 concussions, 10 surgeries, I was like, okay, the writing's kind of on the wall. I don't think anyone, but I had a couple tryouts the very next year, but or 14. Yeah. After 13, which I missed 12, came back 13. I had a couple teams interested, but they were not like playoff potential teams. And this is where pride always fucks you. To anybody listening, when you only have a couple options, it's for a reason. So, if it really means that much, you should take those options and make the most of them. And like at my time, I just wasn't there. I was there to compete for a ring. I wanted a ring. That was the only thing I didn't have left I knew Hall of Fame wasn't going to happen because just too many injuries. But I was like, if I can get one Super Bowl ring, just because, the time at SC and then the first year in the NFL going to the Super Bowl, it leaves that hunger for a championship. Football immortality, man. You either get it through Hall of Fame or a Super Bowl ring. And I was just like, fuck, I just want a ring. And so it didn't work out and I decided to hang them up. And shortly after John Schneider and Pete Carroll called and they were like, hey, we want you to coach. And so that's how I made my way back up here in 2015.
That actually brings me to my next question. Like conveniently, how was that? Because you were an assistant linebacker coach, right?
Yep.
So how was that, and how would you compare it to like the responsibility aspect, how would you compare the role you had in 2015 to when you're actually playing on the field?
Coaching a fucking preseason game was more nerve-wracking to me than playing in the Super Bowl.
Whoa, that's a quote.
If I can sum it up, because you're dealing with other people's livelihoods now. All right. How they make money, how they feed their family. And so it was fucking nerve-wracking. Like, I never knew stress as a football player because I can control this. But if you don't give them every single play, every single scenario, and they get beat by one, it's like it eats at you and you're just like, fuck, like, could I have prevented it? Could I have? And I mean, of course, just like when I was playing, a lot of it's on the player, like to seek more information, everything. But as a coach, we better know everything, like what the player, remembers or forgets, that's on them. But as long as we were able to tell them, like, hey, this, so it was amazing. I got to coach, the best linebacking unit in all of football. I mean, KJ, Bobby, Bruce Irvin, Mikey Moe, we had just dogs all over the field. And, it was awesome. But, and they were just the best professionals that, you could ever imagine. And that's why they won, rings and Pro Bowls and all that. But it was an eye-opening experience in terms of like the amount of time. I always knew coaches put in a ton of time. I knew that my coaches, I used to get there early. They were already there. I used to leave late. They stayed there. I knew that was to be expected by them, but until you actually do it, it's a grind, man.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I was back around football. So, I mean, it was fun. It was fun. If I had to, in terms of the stress and the fun, it was a lot more fun, but man, it was the first time I ever experienced stress on the football field.
You did it for a few years, right?
2 years, 15 and 16. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is there a reason why you just stopped doing it? Like
my kids are too little. They were 3 and 6 at the time. Now they're 7 and 10. And so they're not, you only got a small window to make an impression with your kids because I remember, I mean, when you hit 10 or 11, or 12, like you get too cool to hang out with your parents. So, you better get their attention while you still have it because it's
fair enough,
and so just trying to lay a good foundation for them in terms of values and how to be, how to grow. I'm gonna let them figure out how to grow into their own person, but there's still, manners and respect and some things that they need to be hit with, repetition wise. So it was too much time away. It really was.
Fair enough. I respect that. You did say something like that kind of like struck a chord with me, and I kind of wanted to talk to you about it. Like how, like being a coach, like one of the responsibilities is you really have to look after everyone. And that's it kind of brought me back to a memory a couple months ago when with the whole Trey Flowers controversy at Seattle, because like he wasn't performing the best and he was receiving like a lot of abuse. And I remember you were like let's ease on this guy. Like, yeah. Was that kind of one of those experiences where it's like you just hate to see how much hate this guy got?
Absolutely. I mean, as a player too. And I mean, I don't know. It's not like these guys aren't trying, like it's not like they don't give a shit. Like I know some might throw up a wall and, act as if, just because, that's a defense mechanism for them or how they operate. But it's, like these guys are from being once a player, always a player is a saying. And then the same as a coach, man, like you have the best interests of these guys, especially, I love the Seahawks. I love everybody that plays for them. And I know how much time and effort they put into it and what the average fan doesn't know. And I understand we're, well compensated, overcompensated, but that doesn't mean we should be subjected to just fucking abuse 24/7. Like you think he doesn't know he's not having a great year. Mm-hmm. And so like to pile it on, I feel like, well, one, you're wasting energy that could be used better suited elsewhere. But two, like, guy's got a family, like he's doing as best he can. I like to believe even any guy, I don't know, even that might be misunderstood by the media. I still like to believe that they're doing the best that they can,
Mhm.
and I like to give them the benefit of the doubt because I've been in those shoes, man. And maybe I didn't, take the abuse, but doesn't mean I'm cool with it,
Yeah, fair enough.
to do it to other guys, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess it was kind of before your time, like social media, like it really kind of heightened the hatred. Like, 'cause I guess like a lot of people just like, oh, say someone played like shit, you just kind of watch the games like, wow, that guy played like shit. But now with social media, it's like I'm gonna tell the world this guy played like shit, and then kind of really like
Yeah.
brings it like sparks a flame, you know?
Yeah, even a guy with like 5 followers, as long as if he throws up a crafty meme that catches viral fire, like he can have a voice now. It's just like I don't know, and I mean, it was around. It wasn't. I don't think it was probably like used as much for just bashing and embarrassing people.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, I remember like reading articles and they're like, the tuba doesn't have any more. And I'm like, whatever. Like, it's not like I'm not out there trying.
Mhm.
you know, that's your opinion and you're entitled to it. I mean, as a professional, yeah, we're expected to be criticized. But like when it turns into like hate, it's like, all right, man, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. I mean, how do you think you would have coped in today's game with social media really like being pretty much an aspect of the game? Like you fuck up, it's like, oh man, like I can picture it now. Like a player would fuck up, like, oh man, I'm gonna be a meme now for like 2 months, you know?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I mean, you just got to take it in stride. I mean, like, it's what are you going to do? You going to go report or spam or block everybody? Like,
yeah, fair
no,
enough.
man, move on. Like there's another game next week. Go get a
Hmm.
couple interceptions, go get a couple fumbles. Like,
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah,
change the narrative, man.
yeah, that's the best way to, yeah, to describe it. All right, moving now to the close to the present day. One thing I kind of want to talk to you about was your CBD company, Zoned in CBD.
Yep.
The first thing I kind of want to ask, like just in general, is like, how did you come across CBD?
Fucking, as much as I love football, it fucking tore me to shreds, as we just talked about, with all the concussions and all the surgeries and all the rehab. It's just like, fuck. Um, well, so when I got out here, I invested in some real estate with one of my business partners who also played ball with me, Matt McCoy. And so we invested in real estate that was zoned. It was like green zone. So you were allowed to, because recreational cannabis was here and, about to get underway. So in 14, end of 14, we invested in a couple buildings. And then, we didn't know, but we did end up having to take over operations and, build a brand, bring it to market. It was fucking wild, dude. I'm like, we had other people put in place to do it and they just weren't getting the job done. So, we were like, hey, well, let's go make it happen. And we did. And it's doing well. It's called 1937 Farms up here in Washington in the legal recreational cannabis business. And, when we did that, I started hearing more and more. I had loved cannabis when I was a kid,
Nice.
when I was younger, this is what people don't understand, especially because in the NFL, I didn't have the discipline to stay away from it, so I just didn't do it. Does that make sense?
Okay,
Like
fair enough.
because it lasts so long in your system, that I knew I was like, I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna test positive. So even during the open windows, maybe once or twice a year I would do it. But when I was like in what, eighth grade, freshman, from sun up to sundown, I I was blazing, bro. Like you ask
Oh
anybody that
man,
grew up with me.
eighth grade, just at recess smoking a doobie.
Yeah,
I love it.
it was just I mean, I don't know. Like it was the only thing that helped balance me out. Like and so of course I saw an opportunity just in the industry on the real estate side, but didn't know that we were going to bring a brand to life. And then as I got back around cannabis, I don't really smoke it that much anymore, but I started doing some of the edibles like microdosing, and it just started feeling more like myself than I had in a long time. And I'm talking like since like high school days.
Mhm.
And so as I, continued down that path, research and develop, I started hearing more and more about CBD, one of the other more prevalent compounds that are found in the plant. And started just researching, what it was, what it wasn't, what it could do. And I just became fascinated with all the things that it changed in people's lives. I started hearing the wildest stories from, anti-inflammatory to neuroprotectant properties that help rewire the brain and the body and everything. I was like, what is this true? This can't be real. So I just started buying products, testing them. I would send them to a third-party testing lab just to make sure that, because it was still kind of the Wild West out here. And so I wanted to make sure it was quality product, right? That there was no, toxins, no microbials, no pesticides, no heavy metals, all the shit that we would test our cannabis for before we put it in a bag or a bottle and send it to the dispensaries. Well, as I finally came across one that was CBD dominant and very tiny, like maybe a half a milligram of THC, because I didn't want to be high. This is something I wanted to take during the day and just see, is it going to help my body and my mind get through the day? Because I got a lot of shit at the time. I was fucking 280 pounds. So I was like 50 pounds over my playing weight. And that's from, stress eating, not being able to work out, still consuming the same amount of calories, even though I'm not working out. There was just a laundry list of shit that was going on, like all the inflammation on top of being, huge. And within a week, I'd say like 3 days, 4 days, I started getting better sleep, but I started waking up and I noticed that the inflammation was so far down that I could just wake up after 7 hours of sleep, walk to the bathroom instead of like, I used to have to dangle my feet to the edge of the bed to let the blood rush to them before I could like fucking furniture walk like a toddler.
Holy shit.
Just so I didn't fall like on my face to get to the bathroom. And I was like, yo, that's different. Like I remember just thinking to myself, that's way different than it's been the last like 5 years, And so I just, I kept, I was journaling, kind of like writing down these things that were changing, mood, just it stabilized. And, a lot of that was concussions that was causing the peaks and valleys, the irritability. The fluid in my macula began to shrink.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, now it's like a floater. It's not, like a piece of lint that's just always there when I look and scan, but it's not a huge black dot where it was. Mm-hmm. And so, just hands didn't feel like they were broken anymore. I mean, it's like, I was like, yeah, is this placebo? Is this just all in my mind?
Yeah. Jesus.
And I mean, there's going to be some placebo effect when you take something that is supposed to help you, but it started this fucking momentum that has carried the last that was 2016, last 5 years. And then I was just at one point, because we started the business in 2019, we branched off and we did a hemp-based business, because the difference between cannabis and hemp is the amount of THC. Mm-hmm. So hemp derived, it's lower than 0.3% THC. So it's legal all across the US. And, we started Zonein CBD in 2019. Well, 3 years before that, I was just buying it and handing it out.
Wow.
Because I mean, I dropped 40 pounds. I went from 280 to 235. So wow. It was at 35, 40 pounds. I was back dunking a basketball. Like this shit, I hadn't done that since I was in high school.
And what was the timeline here from when you were first taking it to when you said you could dunk and then shit was feeling normal again?
It was probably, shit was feeling normal within a couple of weeks. I mean, I was still like 30 pounds. I just went to the gym, and it wasn't like a New Year's resolution. It wasn't like I didn't write down goals like I did for going to the NFL, like I was like, yeah, I'll just go to the gym, see what happens. And fucking, fast forward a month, I went from 280 to 250, 255.
Whoa, wow.
Yeah. And like more energy, a better attitude. Mine was in a better space. I was always grateful for everything that I've been blessed with, but, I wasn't acting like it in terms of taking care of myself.
Mhm.
And, it was just like, cause it was crazy. It was just how much better life got. And so, when everybody was asked, all my friends are like, what are you taking, steroids? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm taking CBD, and then trying to explain to them what CBD was and what it wasn't, and just telling them about my journey. And, they're like, because of course, a couple months later, when I got down to 235, it was like 6 months. Like I got from 280 down to 235. And I'm talking probably the best I've looked, even when I was playing, I didn't look that good, because what CBD does is it acts on our cell receptors in our mind and body. And so it became a heightened awareness of sensitivity of the cells for everything. I mean, I remember sitting out in the sun, and like, I've never put suntan lotion on in my life. And, and like, I'd always like have a mild burn at the worst. Right. But then I remember sitting outside. I'm like, ooh, is it hot out here? And my wife's like, no. I was like, I'm burning. Give me some suntan lotion. And she's like, that's, different. Like you never, like, even when I've told you to put suntan lotion on, you've never, sunblock on, you've never done it. I was like, I feel like I am cooking right now. And
It's Jacksonville all over again.
and yeah, right. That was good. But it was a heightened awareness to my cell receptors that are on my skin. I mean, these receptors are all over our mind, body. And we have a endo, like, I can get real nerdy on this shit, but like an endocannabinoid system, an endogenous, something that's naturally occurring in our body. And these plant cannabinoids, they act to enhance them for a number of things: gut health, inflammation, like I said, neuroprotectant, pain sensitivity, pain tolerance. It's insane how it's rewired my mind and body to feel young again. And so, when people are like, yo, what are you doing? I was like, I'm in the zone. That's how Zonein kind of like came about. And then when we went to trademark and everything, Zonein was a stronger, and it was easier to talk about the brand by saying Zonein, or incorporate it into like everyday talk. Like, so it was, that was in 2019. And, since then we've been changing a lot of lives. And I mean, that's like the coolest part, is like, you read a review and like someone will throw up something that, they're like, hey, I took it for just to sleep. Right. And I didn't know it was going to help with fibromyalgia or something. Like, this was just all these wonderful stories that I've compiled over the years in my emails and texts. And, I just felt like this was my new purpose, is to just try, like all these other athletes that I appreciate, and help erase the stigma of hemp and cannabis, because that's not the shit that's killing people, man. It's the fucking pharmaceuticals, and, even like the antidepressants and all the other stuff, like anti-anxiety meds, like this can replace all of that shit.
Yeah. I mean, I actually pulled a quote off your website, and it said, I gained mental clarity, moved without pain, and slept better than I had in years. My mind and body were back in sync. That's why we started Zonein. I want everyone to feel what I experience daily. So is this something that you would recommend for everyone? Because like me, especially, like, it's something I've actually been open to try, but I haven't tried it before.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you said the anxiety aspect, a lot of people take, that's why I gained a lot of notoriety, is because, okay, in large amounts, that's why you see a lot of these CBDs. They're like, oh, 2000 milligrams, it's like, all right, I don't think everybody needs that much, but it's not, the worst thing that can happen is you get a better sleep if you take too much. It's not going to do anything else. But because in high doses, when you get north of like 60, 70, up to 100 milligrams or more, it has a sedative effect, which means it can bring your, that angst down, and like the anxiety down. And so that's why people say it's for sleep and anxiety. I mean, it helps, but for in low doses, 20 to 30, 40 milligrams, it can it can provide mental clarity aspect, and that's why we called it Zone In. And it's, Zone In, it's off of the zone, which in positive psychology means flow state. So just being in the moment. And that's what it's done for me. It's doing for a lot of other people. And yeah, man, I couldn't be more proud to be part of this company and to have started something that, I was just doing on my own several years ago. Because when something changes your life, man, you gotta pay homage to it, and you gotta let everybody else know about it. That's what my new purpose in life kind of became. And so couldn't be more excited to be doing what I'm doing.
That's awesome, man. I mean, shit, I might after this podcast fucking order something and try it out myself. Um, one, like my concluding bit pretty much is now we're pretty much in the present day. And the question I wanted to ask you is because now I intern for it, believe in Seahawks. It's the best Seahawks podcast out there. So I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Like, how did you like get that opportunity to do that podcast?
So I was down in Miami, and I was promoting Zone In at the Super Bowl. And so I was doing all these like radio, it's called Radio Row. And, hopefully we get to go there. Me, you, Katie, intern Bry, and Brett. And so just down there, and I was hopping around doing all these interviews, kind of like what, doing now, just promoting Zone In and telling everybody, about the gift I found. And Braun, a guy that I went to college with at USC, he was just standing there next to one of the tables, and I was like, Braun, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm, Believe Podcast Network. That's, me and my company. And, then your next interviews with these three guys, I saw that you were on the list. So I just came by to say, what's up? So we came down there, me and the guys chopped it up, and it was a good segment. And then he was like, you should really think about doing a podcast. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really yeah, I don't shut the fuck up, but I really don't love to I don't really love to just offer my opinion on things. And he's like, nah, you're just gonna be talking about football. I go, I'm in.
No hesitation. Love it.
Quick 180. But so he was like, just do a guest spot. Just do it. So he connected me with Katie and Brett, and me and Brett, I was like, all right, if this guy's serious, I need to, see what he knows about the Hawks. And we jumped on a call. I was like, yeah, I got about 15 minutes. That call went for like an hour. Between me and Brett, just talking about, okay, all right, who's your favorite, offensive line, this and that. We went for an hour just talking about Seahawks football over the years. And I go, all right, I'm in, I'll come on. I did a guest spot, and then they had me back, I think a couple weeks later, and they were like, hey, do you want to just do the show with Brett? And I'm talking bro, I forget what fucking platform we were using, but you couldn't, I don't know if it was StreamYard or whatever it's called. You couldn't even see each other. So we're just over the phone. We're over the phone. I didn't even have a microphone. No headset. Yeah. I was using my ear pods, I think, because that was the best sound quality we could get. So we've come a long way, intern guy.
Yeah, the production value from your end is looking good. You got the mic, the Seattle background. You love it.
Right. So yeah, thanks to people like yourself, producer Katie, producer Courtney, Brinks TV, Believe Podcast Network, of course. I mean, it's turned into a real show, and something I'm super proud of, and grateful that you're a part of it, brother. We really appreciate you. But that's really kind of how it came to be. It was, I guess, right place, right time, or maybe just meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought I could, be interested in doing something like this, but on my terms. I didn't want to really work for someone else where they this is what you have to do. And that's what I think I love about Believe and Brinks is they let us be ourselves. We're just out there. I mean, we're talking ball, and I mean, that's what I love about it.
I mean, yeah, you love to see it. I can tell when I listen in on podcasts, I can tell it's just two guys chatting, shooting the shit about Seahawks. And that's why I kind of want to take this last opportunity to shoot the shit with Seahawks with you, buddy. This season, 3-7. What is going on? I think we did mention this earlier. The score doesn't really do the team justice at times. But what do you say is when one of the reasons we're doing poorly. I mean,
I think every team has to find their chemistry, and with so many important pieces out in and out of the lineup, Chris Carson, you play like 3 games. Like, I think that's something that can't be, ignored, is that he is one of the reasons we've been doing so well the last few years. And you saw the offense struggle in the middle of last year when we didn't have Chris Carson. So, I mean, all due respect to all their running backs, I love Collins. The kid's a beast. But even he's been banged up and he's been in and out of it. And now Homer's out. So, like, yeah, it's easy to make excuses with injuries. I mean, Russ not being there for 3 games, but
Geno fucks. I also want to say that.
Yeah. Oh, so I guess we could tell that story. I was gonna do that on our podcast, but I was like, I don't know. So the first ever. Well, let me answer the question. We'll get back to that one. We can end on that story.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the number of people in and out of the lineup. I mean, DJ Reed's been out. It's been tough.
Trey Brown.
Trey Brown,
heartbroken. That guy was so good. I love that
coming
guy.
into his own, balling, and it's been tough. Darrell Taylor starts with 4 sacks and then he gets hurt. The scary Monday night where he went down with the neck and like wasn't moving. So it's just, yeah, like I know expectations. That's how good we've been. Expectations are high. Expectations are that, okay, well, I don't care that Russ isn't in there for 3 games. We should still win 1 or 2 of them. It's just like, yeah, but I mean, Russ was the fastest to 100 wins. Like, you can't forget like things like that. It's for a reason. It wasn't. Sometimes it was just Russ. A lot of the times it was the defense helping too. But that was early in his career. For the last several, we haven't really been the defense that we have in years past. And it's a number of things. We're running different schemes than we ran. And so there's a lot that goes into it from a coaching aspect. I remember, like, it's like when you got guys that are used to one scheme and just, we're going to run cover 3 and we're just see if you can make the plays to beat us. And now we're doing a lot more thinking out there. And that's not, it's fine if you can outsmart the offense, but if you're not having a lot of success, and then we're just on the field too much, need more turnovers, need the offense to convert their 3rd down. And I think that's really been the storyline of the year.
I mean, I say from my analysis from watching as like my first season, really watching the Seahawks, I can't really appreciate Carson because obviously I only saw like a handful of games. So I didn't know how integral he was. Ever since he's been injured, I'm like, we're just not running. We're not doing any running plays. I'm like, what is going on? I mean, Collins, he's really like starting, like, obviously I didn't really know who Collins was before the Carson injury. So when I first watched Collins, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of iffy, but like these past games, he's been doing really, really good. So it's like, let's run the ball a bit more.
Well, and like, it's only going to make Russ's life easier. Even if we run the ball 3 times and we don't get a first down, but we punt. I mean, keeping or even like shortening the game is what I'm saying. This is what comes down to like strategic or tactical is, okay, if we're not putting up a ton of points on offense, we can't let our defense out there for fucking 80 plays to get abused in the 4th quarter. I mean, they hold all the way up to the 4th, 60, 65 plays, which is what's expected to be played. And in the last 15, 20 plays, like, all right, they're tired. Like, I don't care how good of a defense you are. I don't care how well conditioned you are. 80 plays of straining is a lot. And, it's just the odds of being right 80 times is not in your favor. So what I always say on like run the ball, it's not that like, okay, if we run the ball, we're just going to run for 200 yards. No, but there was the Pittsburgh game against a solid defense. We came out in the 3rd quarter and we just hammered that ball. We did, pop a few for, 10, 15 yards, but we committed to it and it made Geno's life a lot easier. And it was a 1-score game. And like for us to, we lose by 12 or 13 to the Colt McCoy, and he didn't even have DeAndre Hopkins. So Russ dropping back 40, 50 times is not the answer, and, whether you send him to the line of scrimmage with a play that he cannot change, it's like, all right, we're going to run the ball. You can't change it to a pass. And
I don't know if you heard this, but it was during the most recent game against the Cardinals. I think Russell called something. He's like, "What the fuck does that even mean?" Did you hear him yell that out?
he said that.
No, somebody like I think the
Oh,
tackle or the center is like, "What the fuck?" Like he called something. He's like, "What the fuck does that even mean?" Like I just heard that he like yelled. I'm like,
I
"What
knew.
is going on?"
Oh man,
I'm not an expert, but
come
that
on.
does not sound good.
We needed that audio. We needed. Come on, Bri Dog. We needed that audio next time. If you hear something like that again, you rewind and you
Yeah,
record.
yeah. All right, sounds good.
But
Yeah, I mean, honestly, from me watching the game, like I didn't really appreciate the defense because I mean, a lot of people were shitting on defense at the beginning of the season, and
yeah,
I didn't really respect it until the Packers game. I'm like, damn,
yeah,
this defense. I mean, you could really tell that they were tired, like at the end of the game. And like, I don't
bro.
blame them for the result that happened, but like, yeah,
Bro,
like you said, like
you hold Aaron Rodgers to 10 points. Like, I mean,
fucking respect.
this is Aaron Rodgers that just he put up 24 on the Cardinals just a week before.
Hmm.
Like, it's like that, yeah. And he had a whole 2 weeks to dissect our film too. I mean, that's the best. And to me, it's the best quarterback in the league, man. And like, you hold him to 10 points. It was 17-0, but that
Hmm.
last touchdown was because a check down went for 60 yards. That's how tired we were. Is that
Hmm.
Dylan took that check down 60 yards. It was like, fuck.
I mean, so that kind of steers me to the end of this conversation. Like I've been seeing on Twitter, like DK like posted like 7 in a row, and like obviously at the time of this recording, we're playing Washington tonight.
Yep.
Like, do you think that we have what it takes to turn the season around?
We do. We do. We have the players. I really do. But I think, and like, I'm not saying it's a full change in philosophy, but this is something that we talked about on the game. It's like we start off with these fly series, which that's just the receiver crossing the formation pre-snap. That fucks with the defense and that changes their gap fits. And when we have big maulers, like fucking guys that you want to go into a bar fight with,
Yeah.
on the offensive line, right? Because you're not getting touched. Like we're gonna have some fun. And you know, right now, when we do that, we're getting five. We're getting Penny broke that 10 or 12 yard run to start the game. Like we're getting the opportunities because things are opening. But then it seems like we go right back to this shotgun handoff bullshit. And it's like, yo, like if you don't keep the ball as a quarterback, they're not going to respect play action. They're just going to, tee off on the running back. They're just going to tee off. That's what the end's taught to do. Like you're supposed to sit there and like feather it. They're coming down and hammering Collins, hammering Homer, in Dallas before they even get the ball. It's like, so like I said, I don't want a total change in philosophy, but that first 5 or 6 plays where we come out and run the fly series, run that shit until they stop it. Because the only reason they stopped it, because we stopped doing it. Like that's the only way they stopped it last week. It was that's what was kind of like frustrating or maddening to me. I was like, yo, where'd that go?
I mean, like, I wanted to ask you that question because I mean, like, Pete Carroll, and like, I've seen on Twitter, like, all these people being like, we needed a complete revamp, get rid of Carroll, get all the, like, they need to do all this shit. So it's like, I wanted to ask somebody who really has like the inside knowledge of the Seahawks, like, what do you think the direction of this team should be?
I mean, this entire city was extremely blessed to have Mike Holmgren. And then, yeah, we had his last year, and then, the 2009 season, it was not awesome, but then they were very lucky to have Pete, I mean, look at the track record. And so, it's the number of things, but if you clean house, like who are you going to bring in? That's my, like, for all these people like, oh, get rid of him. Okay. So you get rid of him, then what? And like, where do we go from there? Like, cause it's
Mhm.
not, I don't know. I'm not seeing a whole ton of like candidates that are just like, oh yeah, like let's take them over Pete. He's had 2 bad seasons in 12 years, right? This is his 12th year of being here. 2 bad seasons. I mean, only Super Bowl title, 2 appearances. I think that gives him, at least one more to see if, you know, are we done? Is the era over? Or but I don't think it is. I think there's been just a ton of fucking, I mean, just last year we were 12-4, right?
Mhm.
Like So it's crazy, it's a what have you done for me lately league, but and we're also in the toughest division. Let's not lose sight of that. Rams, I mean, the Cardinals are number one. The Rams are 7-4 or whatever. And the Niners are finding life right now. So it's like, don't forget we're in the toughest division.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, like this is just coming from a soccer fan's point of view. Like whenever like the teams I've seen and followed, whenever they're doing poor, it's like, okay, there is a backup, there is a name out there who can take charge of this club. From my time following football, it's like, who would be a Pete Carroll replacement? Like I don't even know. Like I haven't even heard like a name floated around. Like what do you think, Lofa?
Ted Lasso is who that's who I would bring in here.
Yes, Ted Lasso. It's exactly who we need. Yeah,
if he can go from football to soccer, he can come back to football. No, I just there's nobody out there that, I mean, of course, any team that's doing well, there's going to be their O or D coordinator are going to be in conversations. So I don't know. Like, of course, I'm sure with the turnaround that New England's had, I mean, they're playing some great ball. One of Bill's, proteges is going to come up for head coaching job, and who else is out there? I mean, Kingsbury, his team. I mean, especially thinking about they haven't had Kyler for 3 games, and they're still number one in the NFC. So whoever's over there on the offense and defense, they're going to get some looks. So, but right now, no, I don't have one off the top of my head, because there's also going to be a bunch of guys getting fired. Like pretty soon. That's what happens every year. It's like 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, since I'm such a new football fan, a part of me kind of wants a whole rebuild just for that chaos. Like I kind of want to experience what it's like to see everything just stripped down, start fresh. A part of me kind of wants a fresh start. So I mean, first season as a fan, man, although I'm enjoying the sport, like it's kind of depressing. Just L after L after L after L. I'm literally sitting there like, I just spent 4 hours watching this team just disappoint me. Like what? Like I just feel like such an asshole. Like this is how I'm gonna watch football in a couple hours. I'm like, if we lose, I'm just gonna be like, wow, that's a Monday night just down the fucking drain.
Hey, it's gonna be an epic comeback, my man. But if not, you should go check out the 2012, 13, and 14, YouTube, the Hawks, when they were just taking souls out there, man. I'm talking, just bloodbath battles, with the Niners. I mean, it was like some epic football to watch if you want to get inspired by the Hawks. But like I said, we still got a lot of season left, and could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. But tonight we got to go 1-0 tonight. So
all right, fair enough. Respect. I think I'll leave it at that. Lofa, my final question I want to ask you before wrapping up this podcast is, I mean, we just chatted for fucking 2 hours here, and I've learned so much, and dude, you've lived such a life, but you're 39, man. You're young. So my question is, what are some of your goals that you want to accomplish for both the near and distant future?
Well, I guess it starts with my companies. It starts with my family. So I was thinking near, in terms of, so near future, to continue to expand and reach lives, and, whether it's charitable work or, which is what we're doing tonight at the Queen Anne Beer Hall, for the One Love Foundation. That's what's going on tonight. So contributing that way. And also with the companies, just continuing to reach lives and better them, through some of the best products that have changed my life. So that would be near. And then far, I want to live long enough to see my boys live their dream.
That is fucking beautiful. Wow.
That's so, think my dad died when he was 54. I was 28 or 29, but he saw me live my dream. He lived long enough to see me live my dream. He lived long enough to see my sister become one of the greatest fucking human beings I've ever met. Just, giving and compassionate, and just one of the nicest people you could ever imagine. Shout out to Naya T, my sister. So, and then, I mean, especially think about all the things that my dad did. And yeah, a lot of people, like even first when he passed away, it's tough to talk about him, right? But as it got on, and I became more and more grateful just, to have him in my life. Is that, I mean, he lived for 54 years. He lived. And, because some people, they live till 80, they live to 90, but do they really live? I mean, it's debatable, right? I mean, they were there. I don't know if they lived. Definitely
Yeah.
not as much as my dad did. So
Fair
that's
enough.
that's all I could wish for anybody, is that, like, you know, we're not here very long. So just make sure you're living.
All right, man. Respect. Well, that's been another episode of the podcast, Lofa. As part of my last segment, I want to give you the opportunity. If there's anything you want to promote, whether it be, the Queen Anne Beer Hall, Zonein CBD, anything, man. Like, I want to give you this minute. The stage is yours.
No, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate all that you do for us in Turnpry. And stay blessed. And to everybody listening, I hope you're surrounded by great energy and loved ones. And, it's a blessed year for you too.
Yeah, man. I've never had someone turn down my opportunity to promote something, but I love it, man.
I'm
Brother, thank
promoting
you.
love. I'm promoting love and
I
good
love it.
energy, and people being their best every day. So that's what I'm promoting.
All right, brother. I love it. Thank you so much again for being on the podcast, man. Like, I genuinely appreciate it. It was great.
My man, right on. We'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, we'll do it again. That has been another episode of Beyond the Naked Eye. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Brian Correa. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.